Imagine this, you walk into a market and instead of buying certain fruits and vegetables, people are buying pieces of companies. Someone buys a tiny part of Apple, someone buys a tiny part of Indian conglomerate Reliance. And as these companies grow, people who own them also become wealthier. And yes, this marketplace exists and it is called stock market. However, many people have complicated the concept of the stock market. In this video, we are going to break down into simplest way. So if you are new to my channel, my name is Aman and in my channel, I break down financial concepts into simplest way possible. So if you are someone who is interested in finance or wants to learn more about the topic, then I believe that this channel might help you. Now, without wasting any further time, let's just start the today's video. In this video, we are going to learn about what is a stock market, why do companies allow strangers to invest in them, and how do ordinary people build wealth through it. And by the end of this video, you would be able to understand one simple idea that many people have misconception about stock market. Once you understand this idea, stock market stops looking like gambling and starts looking like one of the greatest wealth building systems ever created. Now, firstly, let's just understand what is a stock market. So a stock market is a marketplace where ownership of the companies are bought and sold. However, many other financial instruments are also being traded on the stock market, but for now on, let's just understand this only. And each share you own, you are buying a small piece of that company. Now think of a company like a large pizza. The company divides those pizza into hundreds of different slices, and each slice is called a share. And each slice you own, you are buying a small piece of that company. So let's look into the history of stock market. So in early 1600, a company called Dutch East India Company wanted to fund their global trading voyages. These voyages were very expensive. So instead of borrowing money from king or bank, they did something revolutionary. They started borrowing money from common public, and in return they offered them shares. So whenever their voyages were successful, public were also given the profits, and this is how it gave birth to modern day stock market. Imagine this, if you could go back 20 years back in time and you could purchase one of your favorite share, be it Apple, Nvidia, wouldn't that decision would have changed your life today? Probably yes. So that is exactly why people invest in stock market. They are not just buying share, they are buying companies which have potential for long-term future growth. Now let's just understand one of the most important concept, which is how investor makes money. Number one is capital appreciation. So whenever the company grows, the amount which you have invested in that company also grows along with it. For example, if you have invested 100 rupees in company A, now as company A performs well and it grows, the share price might rise to 200 or in some cases even 300, and hence your amount which you have invested also grows along with the growth of the business. And second are dividends. Sometimes company also shares their profit with their shareholders. These payments are called dividends. A famous example is a Coca-Cola company, which has paid dividends to their investors for decades. However, there are some of the important points to note about dividend is that it highly depends upon the companies whether to share their profit with their shareholders or to reinvest them back into the business. And also, if you have invested in a loss-making company, obviously there wouldn't be any dividend. Now let's flip the perspective. Why would a company allow strangers to invest in them? Because growth requires capital. Now imagine if a company wants to build new factories, they want to expand globally, or they want to invest in some technology and research. All of these things would require huge chunks of money. Now instead of borrowing loans from bank, company can easily raise money from the public. Now that is why they list their shares on stock exchanges, which in case of India, it is Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange of India. And in case of US, it is New York Stock Exchange. Now you might have a question is that why do share price fluctuates? Now share price fluctuates because of demand and supply. If more people wants to purchase that particular share, the price of that share increases. If more people wants to sell that share, the price of that share decreases. However, the factor which influence the change in price are company performances, geopolitical events, economic news, and investor expectations of that company. There is a common misconception regarding stock market is that people compare it with gambling. Now this idea usually comes from people who are short-term traders, because long-term investing is very different. When you invest in long-term, you are investing in those business and those sectors, and that is why long-term investors study business trends and the emerging sectors, and they allow time and compounding to work. And remember, in order to succeed in all these things, you would require knowledge, time, and patience. Now, remember the idea that I mentioned in the beginning? Now, here it is. Now, stock market is not a place where people trade numbers. It is a place where people invest in business. So once you start seeing your stock as investing in business and stop seeing them as numbers, your entire perspective on investing changes. Now, lastly, in order to summarize our today's video, stock market helps in connecting two powerful forces: companies which requires their capital to grow and investors which requires their money to grow. It has funded innovations, it has built companies, and it has generated wealth for millions of investors. In my next video, we would be looking on to how the stock market actually works behind the scene, how the orders are placed, how does trading happen. And because once you understand the system, you start seeing stock market for what it truly is, which is an opportunity. Till then, see ya, stay tuned.